than what we're upset about, than what we're depressed that happened before. We have limited control, brothers and sisters. We have limited control to make decisions, perhaps not on a binary stage, but we can do or not do. And we have to make a decision as to what we're going to do with the decisions that we have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala harrama dhulma ala nafsi. He made it impermissible for himself to oppress us. But he's also going to hold us accountable for the decisions that we do. And so do we have to ask ourselves, are the decisions that we're choosing hurting us? As I was speaking with Imam Farhan last night, it's not an excuse to blame our own situation that we grew up in. I can't say because I grew up without a father in my household, I don't know how to raise a family, that woe is me, that I can just give up and perhaps repeat the pattern. I have to make a decision to learn perhaps from elders. I have to seek shura and consultation. I have to try to do something different. Perhaps I came from an abusive household. It's not permissible for me to recreate that cycle. The same thing applies to every aspect of our lives. If what I'm doing right now is not helping, it doesn't feel good. Maybe it's not even due to my own circumstances, like the example of growing up without a father. It happened that I was born into this reality. So I have to ask myself, what am I going to do to break this cycle? What am I going to do to make this better? How am I going to challenge myself, get out of my comfort zone? What am I going to do to make my circumstance better? That is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only has given us the capacity to do, but He's going to ask us about how we do it and what we do with it. Brothers and sisters, as I said in the very beginning, we're not going to be held accountable for the reality that we're born in, or perhaps the emotions that come. What comes, that is not always what we can control. What we can control is what we do with them. How do we use the circumstance that we find ourselves in as a tool, as a learning mechanism, as something that we can shift the patterns of our life to be better? That these holding patterns and these openings, the good, the bad, and the depressed, the things that we despite, this bitter, are all gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, enabling us to make changes. Perhaps we could say even flashing a light, trying to get our attention as to what we need to do more of. Brothers and sisters, this pattern or these systems, our lives that we live are not easy. And we'd be lying if we told ourselves it was. And they also are not always going to be blissful and happy. We will have the ebbs and flows, the happiness, the sadness, the things that we love and we don't love, but we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? How do we orient ourselves around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Live the best life that we can and try to make a better decision, not perhaps the holistic better decision, but right now. What can I do to break this pattern? What can I do to be a better person? And ultimately, what can I do to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين واستغفروه وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that indeed Allah and His angels send salawat upon the Prophet. O you who believe, send an abundance of salawat, peace and salutations upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we find ourselves in these situations, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're trying to explore Surah Al-Duha as a means of figuring out how to process these challenges. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just tell us that the next life is better than the first. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He's going to give us what's going to make us happy. And He uses the future tense. It's coming. It's not right now, but Allah is going to give us things that make us happy. But then He reminds the Prophet ﷺ about his past. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. He's reminding him of all these things. Do we not find you an orphan and we helped you, and we do not find you misguided? We got all of these things are things that even modern day psychology tells us are true. that we have to remember to be grateful for the things that we do have as a means of making us feel better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding the Prophet ﷺ of the blessings that he's given him. So when we find ourselves down, we find ourselves depressed, we find ourselves in situations that feel like we perhaps don't know how, or we feel like it's impossible. As the brother told me on my way just coming to the masjid today, he said, I feel like I'm irredeemable. I feel like with things that I've done, there's no hope for me. What we have to do, brothers and sisters, is remember the fact that, as I told this brother, the fact that you reached out shows that Allah loves you. Because you could have went deeper into whatever situation you're in. But you had enough insight. Allah blessed you enough to think maybe this Miskeen Abdul Malik can help me a little bit. So I'm just going to reach out to him. Maybe. That is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what about all the gifts that we have in our lives? What about the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with that we have overlooked? What about the things that we haven't even recognized that we have? The fact that we're sitting here today in America, in one of the richest counties in the country, with lights and microphones and fresh air and ceilings. I remember going to a masjid, I won't mention where, but wallahi, it was tin walls with wood sticks holding them up. Light bulbs hanging from a string, an electric wire with just a light bulb. This was their masjid. We've got AC, we've got, mashallah, how many inch TVs. That alone is a blessing for us to be grateful for. Rugs to pray on. But we have to think back. We have to create for ourselves, as I've said before, bookmarks in the stories of our lives that we can go back to be grateful for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Memories that we can pull from and pull on, invoke to remind us of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us, but also help us be grateful and to change how we're feeling. Think back to whether it was your childhood when someone did something kind to you.